was empty for, I don't know, 12 years, something like that. I bought my house and the barn to store stuff in. That's it. And then I'd come up and, you know, recently I'm like, fuck it. I like it up here. I like it, you know? So I bought this stuff like when I finally made the decision, maybe 3 years ago. I'm like, I got to spend more time up there. I got to do whatever I can do to spend more time at the house than the art studio. So I buy this 3 years ago because I don't want bugs. I don't want bugs. I don't want rodents in the house. It was one thing when I wasn't living here. And believe me, even though that I wasn't here, there were no rodents in this place. As soon as I was like, this has to end. You know, there's no way. You know, field rats would come in. It's horrible, horrible. Gnaw marks. It looked like a fucking groundhog was doing it. So I buy this stuff, and I have my cherry trees, and the cherry trees for some reason attract aphids and well, ants. There's ants on, you know, it gets to be a real problem. You get that, like that, you know, I don't know what it is, like the black fucking goo underneath the leaf. I think that's the aphids. It's insect eggs. I want you gone. Somebody told me, this could be correct, that like, I got an ant on me. That the ants trying to eat the aphids, and the aphids are the black things underneath the leaves. I don't know. I don't even care. This is true. I care about some shit. I care about mammals. Clearly, I don't care about bugs that much. I just want them out of my life. Seriously, they're fucking disgusting. They are. They're disgusting. Oh, by the way, this is something I found. I do sort of care about bugs. This is something I found out recently, that the material that a crawdad makes their shell out of, that material, which is not keratin, it's chitin. Bugs use the same thing to make their exoskeleton. Now let's go on to me and my disdain for bugs. I don't eat them. Fuck you, moths. You're eating a $1,500 sweater. You're dead. That's how I feel about them. So I'm looking at this, right? Because I'm gonna spray it on my cherry trees. Because I'm like, you're fucking up my tree. I don't care if those are ant eggs. I don't even want to know. I just want them dead. Or if those are aphids, I don't know. Is that a young ant? I don't care. So I buy this shit and I'm gonna spray it on my tree because I'm like, well, fuck it. Pyrethrins will kill a bug. So I bought this stuff and I'm pretty sure that this has pyrethrins in it. So I'm reading this thing and it's nonsense. They tell you, they have this big warning here, directions for use. And they say, only, well, look at this, listen to this. Okay, so they do this. Do not water the treated area to the point of runoff. Do not make applications during the rain. All outdoor applications must be limited to spot, crack, or crevice treatments only, except for the following permitted uses. This is what I'm talking about right here. This is insane. So they already told you, limit it to that. Limit it to that, right? And now they go in to tell you treatment of soil or vegetation around structures. You can do that, right? You could do that. Or applications to lawns, turf, and other vegetation. You can use that for this, right? You know, it's no problem. You can spray it on your lawn. You can spray it on dirt, it says. Applications to building foundations up to a maximum height of 3 feet. Other than application building foundations, outdoor applications to impervious surfaces such as sidewalks, driveways, patios, porches, structural surfaces such as windows, doors, and eaves are limited to spot and crack crevice application only. What? They just said pretty much in this paragraph that you could just treat everything as, you know, you just can't treat anything that's above 3 feet. But But you could put it on vegetation. You can put it on dirt. What? Why did they even write this? Why didn't they just say you could use it wherever you want? But here's the end. This is the kicker. Application is prohibited directly into sewers or drains, or to any area like a gutter where drainage to sewers, storm drains, water bodies, or aquatic habitat can live. Do not allow the product to enter any draining during and after application. They say that it should be dry first. They're pretty much saying you can use this shit wherever you want, just don't pour it down the drain. That's all they're saying. This is ridiculous. Spectricide. Who makes this? Monsanto? Probably Monsanto. There must be some type of like, why didn't they just say, look, don't pour this down the drain, it's gonna fuck up amphibians? Why didn't they just say that? You can spray it wherever you want. I don't know what the deal is about the 3 feet. Maybe birds? Birds? I don't know. Bats? Could be for bats, because bats are protected. You can't fuck up a bat, even though they are the nastiest. I hate bugs and bats. I just figured it out. I don't like bats. I don't like bugs. I don't need to know a lot about bats, I'll tell you that. Is that a bat? Get it out of here. That's what I need to know. I had them in my house. Don't get me started. But I mean, it's like, what's this? Well, who makes this shit? I bet it's Monsanto. Let's see. My friend's dad worked for Monsanto. Like, you know, like, my dad worked for PPG, worked for a chemical company too. It's like, what are you gonna do? Like, it doesn't, where does it say? Who makes this shit? Spectricide. Oh yeah, it doesn't say Monsanto, but I'll tell you what, it is Monsanto, because it says St. Louis, Missouri, and that's why I'm friends with this person whose dad worked at Monsanto. She's from St. Louis, I'm from St. Louis. It says Spectricide, but it's St. Louis, Missouri. Division of United Industries Corporation. I wonder if that's part of Monsanto. I'm betting it is. St. Louis, Missouri. It's fucked up. They should make this shit. Monsanto should. They like to kill. They like to kill shit. They like to kill bugs. They like to kill plants. They should make something for bats. They can't. They like to kill. I don't like bats. You know what? You know what they should make for bats is something that is so repulsive to the bat that if you have it up there, if you have it where they're going in, they just want to get the fuck out of there and never come back. I don't know. When I had them, I swear to God, this was the truth. If somebody would have told me that you could take a dead raccoon, find a dead raccoon on the highway, and nail it up there by their hole, and they will get the fuck out of there, I would have done it. I would have done it. Instead, I had to put up with them until the fall when they left, and then you're gone. You're not coming back. The little brown bats, the little freaky ones, man, those are the worst. And if they're flying around your house, if they're in your house and you're ducking, they'll get tangled in your hair. I was screaming like a little girl. I'm upset right now. I'm thinking about the bats coming back. Any day now. Early June is when they come back. You know, I'm working with, you know, I'm trying to kill bugs. Like, bugs really don't bother me that much. Bats bother me. You know, I don't want, you can't kill them, okay? You just have to put up with them. If you live down south, you're fucked. I'm just telling you the truth. If you live down south and the bats are living in your attic or something, you're fucked. You just call an exterminator and they'll take care of it. If you live in a northern climate like this, like New York, any place where it gets real cold, the eastern brown bat, they go to caves during the winter. They don't want to live in your attic. What they want to do in your attic is the eastern brown bat, they want to come here and they want to have their babies in your fucking attic. They couldn't go to my barn, they had to go to my attic. Nice. The male bats stay outside in a tree. It's only the females and the babies that are living in your attic. The fucking males are off watching at a distance, fucking ready to swoop in. It sucks. This is true. I'm sorry. I'm burdening you all with this, but when I had the fucking bats here, I wanted to get a count how many they were. So I was outside. This is true. I was outside 20 feet away. Here, I'll show you. I was standing back here, minding my own business, just trying to count them as they're coming out. I didn't have a badminton racket. I didn't have anything like that. Nothing like that. There was no reason for them to do what they did. As they're coming out of the thing, I'm standing over here. They're coming directly for me and going at me, like within inches of my head. Like, what's that about? I didn't do anything to them. I just wanted them gone. But they see me there and they're fucking with me. I don't want them back. It's all blocked off. I haven't had time to finish this out, and before it gets finished out, it has to be sealed up. I'd go up there with epoxy, you know, if I thought that it would definitely keep them out. I'm not doing this shit again. If they come back and they're in my fucking attic, I'm gonna be playing music. You're not gonna like it, bats. Right there, see where the foam is? That's where they were coming out of. By that, right at the corner, that's where they were coming out. It was fucking disgusting. I don't like them. They're in your house, they're gross. Don't touch them. They're a rabies vector. They're the filthiest animal on this planet. I love all animals. It's true, I love all animals. I feel bad saying this, that fucking bats suck. They freak me out. It's like little chihuahuas with wings. They're not right. The duck-billed platypus, what a beautiful animal. The bat, freaky. There's a little bit not as bad if it's a bat from Australia and it's a large, like it's a flying fox. Still looks like a chihuahua with wings, but it's not as gross. One, because I know that there is no rabies in Australia. Having Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill is an issue? What in the fuck? How can that be an issue? They've had an Indian killer on there for how long? Just change it. Who cares? He's been on there. What? Are his relatives pissed off? Who gives a shit? Put Tubman on the $20 bill or put somebody else. I don't care. Why would anybody care? They keep the Indian killer? God damn it. I'm in Walmart and there's somebody in here with 2 German Shepherds. You hear that? On flexi leads. One's on a flexi lead, the other is on like a real thin nylon leash. And I'm just like, whoa, what's wrong with this picture? Those aren't service dogs. They're never gonna be service dogs. And the owners have no idea what they're doing. They shouldn't be bringing them in Walmart. You see me in Walmart with a dog, it's a service dog, okay? And it won't be barking like that. I'm not gonna go take pictures of the dog. There's no reason to, say, look at the idiot? He'll probably bark in a minute. If I keep talking about it, the dog will bark. There's no reason that those 2 German Shepherds need to be in this store. If it's hot out, don't bring the dog with you. Don't sit here and say it's a service dog when it's not. It's so clearly not a service dog. Not only are they not service dogs, but they're gonna be a mess because you don't even know what a proper leash is. Proper leash is made out of leather. Not a flexi lead, no control, and they have German Shepherds in the store. It's definitely worse than I thought. It's 2 German Shepherd puppies. I just had a look at them. They're probably about 6 months old. So the idiots got dogs, probably from the same litter, I'm sure. Don't ever do that. Dogs need to be split up in the 7th, 8th, 9th week. If you're getting it in the 10th week, okay. The 11th week, you're wasting your, don't do that if you're gonna buy a dog. Get it at they need to be split up. You don't get brothers and sisters and expect everything to go well. Not only that, do they have these 2 German Shepherd puppies, but there's a bunch of kids. Like they have, it looked like 4 or 5 young kids. Do you hear this? Do you hear this? There's no reason to call these people out. There's nothing that I say is going to change them. That's not my deal anyway. It isn't. If they see this, maybe they'll learn. Maybe somebody else will see this and learn that you don't do that. You don't do that for a reason. You certainly don't bring dogs in Walmart that are not service dogs. They are clearly not. I would never buy bird toys made in China. There's no way. I don't recommend anybody do that. Even if it says made in the USA, that's just a recipe for disaster. They make stuff, companies make stuff for you to buy. You shouldn't be buying stuff like that. If you just want to spend money on your pet, bird or dog, you're an idiot. Why don't you spend time with the animal? That's my suggestion to all pet owners is stop trying to compensate because you know you're a bad pet owner by getting bark box or I'm gonna, give the dog a bunch of treats until it's fat, or buying your bird like toys that are just like absurd. Like it's absurd. I've seen people like give their bird like human toys because they understand that stuff from China might not be so good for your bird, but stuff from the United States could be just as bad for your bird too. It doesn't have to meet the guidelines that it does if they're making it for a child. And besides, most of those things that you give to a child, like a toddler or whatever, they're plastic. They're plastic or rubber. Your bird, your hookbill is gonna ingest that. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that. I recommend what you do is make your own toys. Here's an example of something that I would give a hookbill, and that's just an ear of corn with an eye screw in it. So you can hang it. You can hang it somewhere. If your bird has a cage, you could put it inside the cage. You put it somewhere that the bird can get it. Now, if the bird has never seen this, you might want to shuck this so that it can see what's on the inside. But if it's like a really curious bird, you could just hang this thing and they might go for it and start ripping it up. With that said, I consider it an edible toy. And with that said, it's gonna make a mess. But you have the animal, you got the animal, you don't wanna pick up the mess, I don't get it. I also don't get that, like a parrot, there's parrots that just live in cages their whole lives. Oh, you'll give them this, but you won't interact with them outside the cage because you got bit. You shouldn't have gotten the bird in the first place. And once again, you'll probably overcompensate with your bird. You have all kinds of stuff hanging in the cage. That's a recipe for disaster. Your bird gets tangled up on that, those rope things, the rope things that people give hook bills. They start shredding those things. Those, once again, are colored. I don't, what kind of dye is that? I don't know. It's made in China. But they start shredding that, and then you come home and your bird's stuck. It's stuck by its foot or something. And if it's stuck, it's going to die in a very short period. It'll stress out and die. Don't buy that garbage. Don't buy garbage for your dog. You don't do that. Spend time training your dog. If you want to splurge, then you find a dog trainer that you trust and send your dog off. But as far as the birds go, there really isn't any board and train for birds. If you got the bird and you got bit and you're not interacting with the bird, you're a loser. Flat out, you're a loser. Maybe try and find the bird a home. Maybe the bird will start trusting you again, start making them toys like this. Your bird will like this more than it's gonna like your garbage that you're buying because you feel guilty. It's all about guilt with the dog owner. The dog they banish to the backyard or something. It's like, well, instead of giving it dog food, I feel so bad. I want the dog to really like me. So you go out and give it people food, which is totally imbalanced. People do this with their pets just constantly. They compensate because they're a crappy owner and they feel bad and they know it, and you know it. You see this video, and you have a bird that doesn't come out of the cage. What the fuck did you get the bird for? Those little beautiful finches and stuff, I have never understood that. That's like so fucked up. People go by these little pretty finches and the finches just bounce back and forth in the cage, and aren't they pretty? Yeah, well, you're not interacting with them. They're stuck in a cage. You didn't hand train them. They're like too fragile. That's the thing that's the basic rule of thumb with birds, is that people don't get them. Like the small bird, they would say, oh, that's too fragile. How am I gonna hand train that bird like you would a larger bird? Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I'll shut up now. I'll shut up now. But if you're one of these people, you feel guilty and you're using BarkBox because, you know, look, here's this for Fluffy. You're a bad owner. If you have a bird and it lives its life in a cage, you're a bad owner. If you're buying toys for your bird, I'm not saying that you're a bad owner. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying try something like this. And by the way, you can make this in pretty much all stages. If it's real dried out, if you have the real dried out corn, this gets stuck in there real good. It's like screwing it into wood. But it will make a mess. But you have the animal. You wanted the animal, okay? So there's things that you have to deal with. So if this, you know, keeps your bird preoccupied for 2 hours, whatever, however long it takes, a half an hour for it to rip through this thing and, you know, make a mess in the bottom of the cage. You wanted the animal. You wanted the pet. Okay? So do something for your dog, your bird, or your cat. Peach is my cockatoo. She loves these things. Here. Let's practice. Here. Sit. Heel. That's pretty good, dude. Sit. Heel. That's good. Sit. Heel. No, heel. Good, perfect. That's good. Sit. Heel. Sit. Heel. Beautiful. Sit. Heel. Sit. That's beautiful. Nice work. Sit. He wasn't always doing heel like this. What he would do is he would take the back of his head and bump it into like your calf. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. If you have a bad leg, if your dog's doing something like that, that's sort of reminiscent of a herding dog. He's part Aussie Shepherd. And so he's bumping you in the back of the leg. Your dog is challenging you. It's very similar to the dog that takes its front paws and bounces off your stomach or your chest. Don't let the dog do that. That's a horrible thing for your dog. When I transferred my phone in the AT&T store, they didn't transfer it over to the new number where I got billed by text. That's how I have it set up. So when I get a bill, it comes in on text and I just pay it on my phone. It's simple, right? So 2 months passed and then I'm being contacted, you know, my phone's turned off and I'm being contacted by AT&T saying that I'm gonna have to pay another $40 because I was late on my bill. So I call them up, they change it, they take it off. I'm like, okay, we're good to go, we're all set up. I'm getting my billing on my phone. Evidently, I didn't get my bill sent. I don't think about where's my bill because I have my phone, it just gets sent to me and that's when I pay it. But March is the last time I got a text message regarding my bill. Then today I try and use my phone's been shut off because of non-payment. So I look on there, I'm looking at the text, I'm like, the last time they sent a text was in March. So I call them, I say, what's up with this? You're sending my bills on my text and then you didn't. And now you want to charge me $40 extra. Oh, she's very like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. It's a scam from AT&T. It is, because how many times is somebody just going to pay the bill, screw the $40, I don't want to make the call. They even make it even more difficult. So she's like, okay, it's all set up, so you're getting your text. You know, you're going to be contacted by text again. Oh, really? Okay. But you're going to have to call back in 2 days because that bill hasn't been generated, so we can't take the $40 off. They know that there will be a certain amount of people that will forget and not call back, and they'll get to keep the $40. It's such a bullshit scam. $40 times a million. $40 times 20 million. How much is that? That's a lot of money that AT&T is fucking taking from the consumer. It's not a mistake. They didn't just like, oh, all of a sudden we're going to not send text anymore. They did this on purpose. They did it on purpose. And the AT&T chick says, when she answers, she says, how can I save you money today? By not fucking me fucking around, okay? And send me my goddamn bill like you're supposed to. And then, when you admit that it's your mistake, AT&T, what you do is you rectify it right then. You don't say, well, you're going to have to call back on the 28th or 29th when the bill is generated. Are you fucking kidding me? It's so clear what you all are doing. That is such a ripoff. And then you have the choice of, like, I could go back to Sprint or something, but that's a hassle in itself too. They know this. They're gouging the consumer. They don't care. Anybody else did this happen to? Anything similar? I bet that there's a lot. One more thing. That call took about 30 minutes to deal with them. 30 minutes. And I have to call back again. So let's add on another 15. 45 minutes of my time. 45 minutes of my time cost a lot of money. It cost more than $40. So there would be people like me that are like, fuck it, is it even worth calling back? AT&T, you're screwed up. All these mega companies, they're all just fucked up. All they care about is money. They don't care about the consumer. They have all these things in place so that they can make more money by stealing. That's stealing, AT&T. That's being dishonest. That's knowing that there will be a small percent, they're not even a large percentage that'll be like, fuck it, it's not worth my time, or that'll just forget. I have shit going on. Am I worried about the $40? I have to think about that. Oh, let's see, 2 days from now I have to call AT&T. Yeah, I'll remember I don't have Alzheimer's, but that sucks. That sucks that you're ripping people off. Fuck you. Never had the desire to climb Mount Everest. Why would somebody want to fucking do that? I want to freeze, and then I want to get altitude sickness, and then I'm going to die up there. Or the chances are good. Tell me that they don't have something to prove. You want to climb Everest? McKinley's not enough? Barking and whining is very detrimental to your dog's behavior. In so many ways, it's safety. I'm telling you, dogs, perfectly normal dogs, are put down every year because of barking. It exacerbates issues like separation anxiety. Barking is terrible for your dog's behavior, your overall performance of your dog. You have got to get the dog to be quiet. And I'm not talking about, like, if it's outside making some noise and it's with you, you sort of have an issue. If it's inside making noise, you sort of have an issue. You don't sort of, you have an issue with your dog. It needs to be quiet. This notion that the purely positive dog trainers, it's hard for me to even call them dog trainers, put out that, like, oh, the dog's communicating to you. That's good. No, it's not good. The dog doesn't need to communicate anything to me. I know exactly what the dog needs. It doesn't need to be barking or whining that it wants something. Whining is just as detrimental as barking. Don't let this continue with your dog. Your dog's behavior, the performance of your dog will just get worse. If you're in New York City and you have a dog that's barking or, it's loud, they can come and take your dog away. Say it's a nuisance dog, you're going to get tickets daily, $250 tickets daily. What other choice are you going to have? You'll have to find it a home. You could use bark collars. This is a bark collar we're using with Bear here that is highly effective. But he also has an e-collar, and even before I put this on him, I made sure that he was really functioning well with this. I think that I tried a bark collar earlier, and he wasn't functioning high enough with the regular remote collar. So I stopped using this, waited a few more weeks, and now we have this on when this isn't on. A collar, your remote collar should only be on about 8 to 10 hours a day. So they have to come off. So when I'm working him, I'll take this. This is a remote collar by e-collar Technologies. I'll take this on and off and put the bark collar on, because if I'm coming in and out of the house, that may cause excitement and may cause him to vocalize, and we don't want that. He also will make vocalizations whining for food and stuff like that for a long time before I really had him. Like, I could take him out in the field. We saw a squirrel the other day. I saw his ears go up. He didn't go after the squirrel. He stayed at heel. He was off leash. That's the point where I know, like, the e-collar, he's functioning good with it because he knows that I can control it, and he can control it too. Get up there, up. He can control it too, that if he's non-compliant, if he becomes compliant, he can turn the collar off. So I had this down. I had this to the point where he knew that he could control the collar if he just became compliant. So he saw a squirrel, he didn't chase after it, he stayed at heel. That's good. That's the point where I knew, all right, we got to start working on the barking and the whining with something more than this, which is this collar here. This is the Garmin Delta Smart Dog. Yeah, this is a bullshit collar as a remote collar. It only goes like 10 feet. You could use your iPhone to correct the dog. It's bullshit. Don't even get this for that. Don't get it like, oh, I'm just gonna use this as a remote and a bark collar. This doesn't do everything. This is a bullshit collar as far as remote goes. It's terrible. It's terrible. If your dog is 20 feet away and it's in the yard and you're trying to train it with that thing and your phone in your hand and stuff, like, it's 15 feet away, it's not gonna work. So you end up looking like an idiot to the dog. The correction doesn't work. It's terrible. The first time I found this out was when Luna was here. No, get up there, dude. Sit. Don't do that. He's got a lot of attitude. He's awesome, though. You're awesome. Sit. We were out in a field, and I had the bullshit collar on her, and I had her looking for, like, she was doing scent work. She was looking for a wing, and she just kept, this little dog just kept bouncing around, and then she's getting out of earshot, and then I have no way of controlling her. I didn't have a whistle with me, so I was going to use the vibration function on this, not this. And I'm like, oh, she's still looking for the wing, and she's going off in that distance. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. I had to run closer to her so that she could hear my voice. Whistles are great for that, by the way. Whistles make it sound like you're standing right next to the dog. So if you're using a whistle, if you have a non-compliant dog or something, and you're right here and you blow the whistle, and the whistle's been trained to do, whistle, stop, and sit, it sounds like you're screaming in the dog's ear. It's getting a big pressure wave. No, sit, like that. But this collar's bullshit for training purposes. It's too hot. This collar is, you could use it real low. I need him to turn the collar off and to function quicker, I use it even lower than that. Like, say I say sit, and I have the dog sitting. When I say the word sit, I start tapping the collar. As soon as the dog's ass hits on the ground, I stop tapping. You definitely don't want to go buy a bark collar without conditioning your dog first with a remote collar. If you haven't conditioned your dog to turn off that, you're just going to confuse your dog. People want to sell you stuff, okay? They do. These companies, they want to rip you off. They're not going to tell you this shit. They want you to buy the product. They don't really care what happens to your dog. I'm just telling you the truth here. They don't care what happens to your dog. They don't care that if you buy a bark collar that it's going to make matters worse. They just want you to buy the product. They're not going to tell you, yeah, you need to spend some money and some time and remote collar condition your dog, and then you could start using a bark collar. They don't tell you that because they really don't care. They want you to buy the product. And they just figure that you're supposed to figure it out on your own. And let me tell you something real quick. Figuring that out on your own is not writing questions underneath a dog trainer's video. is I'm not going to answer them, and it's ridiculous. Anybody that would be doing that, I feel sorry for your dog. And as soon as you get in that position, the annoyance stops. So as soon as the dog's ass hits the ground, you stop tapping. It's in position. That trains the dog to turn off the collar. You do that in a few sessions. Don't overdo it, but you do it 2 or 3 times. Maybe take them back out later and see if they function better. But they start picking this up real quick. A few days and they'll start picking it up. The things that I do like about this collar, that he's going back with this collar for sure, it's super sensitive. So real small dogs, it's great. Whines, it picks up whines, that's great. It's gonna correct him and tell him not to whine. I don't need him whining. Nobody needs a dog that's whining, and a lot of times that's just trained in by you or a peripheral person. All he'd have to do is whine. If you let him out of the crate, you let your dog out of the crate, you just train the dog to whine. Or if the dog's whining and then you give the dog food, you just trained him to whine or bark or whatever. The dog communicating that way is a terrible thing for your dog. It's telling a human to do something and then you're doing it. It's ass backwards. So this will pick up whines. It's super sensitive. You could put this down on a table and sometimes it'll go off. Very sensitive. The other thing that I like about this is it works on small dogs, meaning it's a real small collar. It's one of the smallest collars on the market. But that's what I want. I want the smallest collars possible. So that's a plus. It also has plastic contact points for extended wear. I took the collar off of him. I don't leave a collar on him all night, but I took it off of him. And because he's not real excessive barking. When I had a dog here that had bad separation anxiety, real bad, I had collars on him 24/7, moving it around so that the dog didn't get any irritation. This is one of the collars that I used. It was do or die. The dog was with me. I was his last chance. His name was Pharaoh. He's a great dog. I'm still in contact with his mom. I just made this collar go off by moving this around. That's how sensitive it is. But you couldn't leave Pharaoh alone. You walk out of the room and he'd start freaking out and hurting himself in the crate and stuff. So it was do or die. This collar helped save that dog. This is true. But on the same hand, when we were at Pharaoh's house, and if this was on him, if we were watching him on the baby monitor, we couldn't use the phone and correct the dog in the crate. So this is when we used this product. That dog went home with several products. This was one of them, this was one of them, because this will go through drywall. This will go 3/4 of a mile. If Bear was over in the field doing something, if he was eating deer shit or something, and I said no and he kept eating it, I would hit the button, I'd say no again. Right when I hit the button, say heel or here. You could correct this dog 3/4 of a mile away. With this you could correct the dog 3/4 of a mile away. This, you got about 10 feet. It's a joke. But as a bark collar, once again, as a bark collar, it has good qualities. Besides the plastic contact points, it has an app on your phone. So you can see activity. That's a huge plus. I'm not hearing a loud dog at all now since this went on. It's been lessened so much that this is a winner in my book. This is going home with him. But it's great because I can look at the app and see if he made any noise. You know, I'll tell you something. When that dog Pharaoh was here, I'd put this on him. I mean, the dog would make vocalizations. You can make it so that it's not correcting the dog. It's just picking up on barks and whines. You know, it's activity. I don't know, in a day, 3,000 times. That's how severe it was. But with this, you know, I could see like, yeah, I had a little activity at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 to 2, but not much anything at all. Not even anything that set the collar off. It was just like activity. Like it was mostly active for like a half an hour when this was on at a certain time. So that's that's good. They also make a just plain old bark collar that I don't like as much because it's a little bit bigger than this. And I also the Garmin bark collar that they make, it doesn't have contact points like this. They are, as I think that you could change contact points with that bark collar, but they're sort of, I should give that collar another chance. I just set it off again by moving it around in my hand. It's super sensitive. If you have a whining dog, you have two choices. Either find the right collar that will pick up his whine, or you sit there like I did for weeks. If I was eating, I would have this in one hand, and if he was whining or anything, I would correct him and say no. It's exhausting. But at that point, he wasn't functioning that well, so I had to do that because I didn't want to put this on him, because that could make it worse. Don't listen to what I'm about to say. Do not go buy a bark collar from any company. If your dog is not collar conditioned, if you have not trained your dog with this type of collar, the collar that he has on, do not put a bark collar on him, because you'll just confuse the dog. The dog will not know how to turn the collar off, and they'll try barking through the collar, and then you got a huge mess. You can't use the bark collar, so what's the point? And the dog just barked for, just kept barking and barking and barking and making matters worse. You're going to increase that energy that makes the dog bark. You need the dog calm. That's what everybody should be looking for. If you have a separation anxiety dog and it barks, you got to get it to quit barking. If you have a dog like this that just whines and occasionally, gets bratty in the crate, you got to get them to the vocalizations to stop, or it just keeps going. This might be a tool that you could use, but don't buy this unless you first collar condition the dog and the dog is functioning really good for you. I had him out in a field yesterday, the day, just functioning great, listening to me, doing retrieves, coming to heel. That's the point when I started like, okay, let's take care of the bark problem. Look at Bear, what a good looking boy. You're pretty handsome, dude. You're doing real good. You're doing real good, buddy. He just started catching frisbee. He can actually catch it, and he's pretty good. He's way better than average. Bear has Aussie Shepherd in him. There's a couple breeds that'll just, it's easier to teach to catch a frisbee than others. Aussie Shepherds, Border Collies. There you go. This is real important. What I'm doing here is like I'm being real. There you go. I'm being real easy going with it, but I'm also making him. See how I just made him sit? I have him under control. If you're using your dog in retrieving, any type of retrieving, and the dog's being non-compliant, see, I'm making him pick it up. I'm making him deliver it to my hand. If it's non-compliant, it just makes it worse, because the retrieve is positive reinforcement in itself. So, you might not hear it because I'm pretty far away from the camera, but I'm like releasing him. I'm saying, okay. Like, you need to get it heel, but then I understand that the dog needs to get out front, so I release the dog. You can pop out a heel. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you don't, you have a dog that's just running around, they're gonna have trouble catching the frisbee too, because they're not gonna see where it's going. They have to have an idea what's going on. So anytime the dog is doing any type of retrieve, you definitely want to make them as calm as possible before the retrieve. Yes, I understand it's frisbee, and it's different than like doing a retrieve with a dummy launcher. See the way I make the dog sit? But it doesn't matter if it's a frisbee or a dummy launcher or whatever. It's doing a 1,000-yard blind retrieve. You want the dog calm and under control, because if the dog isn't under control and you throw the retrieve, because the retrieve is positive reinforcement, you are training the dog to be a jerk. Did you see that? That was awesome. But it's the truth. You're just conditioning your dog to be a dick. So make sure that the dog is under control. If you don't have a bark collar, to get the dog to stop barking would be a squirt gun. I've used those before. Remember, if you're just saying no, 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 you're not using on a high enough pressure. You might get a super soaker so that you could correct the dog. It's at a distance, say it's 10 feet away, and when it starts whining or barking, you could squirt it with water by saying no. That's not going to make the dog melt. It's not going to hurt the dog. You could also try a shake can, which would be like a soda can with pennies, nickels in it, dimes, and you shake that by saying no. The whole purpose is to break the cadence. You have to break the cadence or the dog keeps going. It's like ruff, 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 or it's just a whine. But if the cadence isn't broken, they just keep going. So you have to use something to break the cadence. You could take a shoe and chuck it, and if you chuck it and it lands on top of the crate, that's great. You could also take a shoe. Now, if the dog's right by the cage door, and you take a shoe, you don't want them looking in that direction to see something coming at them. But you could take a shoe and hit the cage door too. That's fine. That's not abusive. You don't want to take a shoe and throw it and hit the dog. Don't hit the dog with anything. But you can certainly take a shoe, lob it up, and have it bounce on top of the crate. That will create a pressure wave that's going to be more than just your no. So time it so that when the shoe is dropping onto the crate or hitting the cage door, you're saying no. But you have to break up the cadence. A water gun, a shake can, you can try all of these. Depending on how persistent the dog is, very persistent, you might want to think about this, the bark collar. But before the bark collar is put on, your dog needs to be collar conditioned with a remote collar. If it is not, do not buy a bark collar. You're going to make matters worse. I know two people that admit to joining Mensa in my life. And to join Mensa, I believe you have to have an IQ of 135. And most people that have an IQ of 135 or above have no desire to join Mensa, but some do. Both those people confided in me. Well, the one said I could join Mensa, and then I asked her what her IQ was, and she told me 155. And you know what? I believe this chick. I believe that it is 155. She's very bright, and she's an underachiever. So I do believe that she had 150. And the other person, once again, is sort of an underachiever, and she's into joining groups that she joined a group that has to do with her school, the college that she went to, which is very exclusive, and there's a club in Manhattan that you could join. And then the conversation came up, and she said, how did she put it? She said, when I was younger, I joined, and I'm not really sure why I did, but I think why she did was probably to meet people. That's it. She wants to meet people that are similar, intellectually similar. That's why she joined the club in Manhattan. I'm positive that that's what it's about. I put it more bluntly, I don't want to sleep with anybody that's stupid. I will, but probably only once or no longer than a week or two. But that's how I see it. If somebody's somebody can be not as smart as me or not as creative as me, but they have to be in the same sort of realm. You know, they don't have to be, they could be smarter than me. I've dated many women that clearly had higher IQs than me. That's what I'm attracted to, is smart broads. But the whole Mensa thing is just, I don't know, what's the purpose of it, other than my friend that I think that it was probably to get laid, and to get laid with somebody that you could talk to afterwards. I think that that's what it's about. She's hysterical too. She's a very funny woman. Both those chicks are extremely funny. One of them, well, I can't say this, then it might be obvious who I'm talking about, but let's just say both of them could work in comedy, and one of them might. When Trump says that he's a stable genius, understand that nobody that is a genius goes around saying that they're a genius. Being a genius would be nothing more than embarrassing for somebody that is a genius. So you don't go around bragging about it, okay? You were just born that way, so there's nothing that you can do. Nothing that you've done is made you a genius. Look at all the geniuses that underachieve. Look at the genius that I know that, like, she's attractive. Both those chicks are attractive, by the way. But the one person with the 155, she uses her, she's like for lack of a better term, she's a Pilates instructor. She's a fucking Pilates instructor with a 155 IQ. She could have gone into medicine. She could have been a crackerjack lawyer. She could have done just about anything, but she's using, her beauty, which is, she's very attractive and very fit. But that's another issue, is that she's into being fit, so she's trying to educate the masses doing that. But at no time does she go around announcing that I'm a genius, or she won't walk around a party saying I have a 155 IQ. It's just absurd that we have a president that goes around saying that he's a genius, and not only is he a genius, he's a very stable genius. He's neither stable nor a genius. There might be a genius aspect into him in that he doesn't give a shit and will say anything. He's a genius at lying. That might be true, but his vocabulary isn't as great as he says. His ability to, like, take in information and retain it, he really doesn't have any. Maybe he does if, like, one of those pundits like Sean Hannity's talking to him, he can remember something to the next day. But he really doesn't understand politics in a geopolitical sense. He doesn't. It's all about him. It's all me, me, me. Even if he had an IQ that was 135 and he could join Mensa, which if he had 135 IQ, don't you think he would join Mensa and be bragging about it? He would have a bumper sticker on the presidential limo. He would be bragging about it. He doesn't have an IQ over 135, okay? He might have an IQ high enough that he can remember some stuff and he can get on stage and he can speak, but he's not a genius. He's not a genius by any means. He's probably a little bit above average IQ. My guess would be he's about 110, 115, something like that. Maybe in the 120s. But he does not have an IQ over 135. And he's stable? A stable person doesn't parade his cabinet out to sit there and say how stable he is. That's what he did the other day. How many times have we seen this? That he uses his it's like we're in North Korea, and Fox is the, what you use to educate the people, which, man, I'll tell you something. My dad listened to Fox, and if you're listening to Fox, Shepard Smith, he will speak the truth, so will Chris Wallace. There's some good reporters over there, but generally speaking, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, it's all opinion, and it's all put out as facts. So watch out what you're listening to, and I recommend that you listen to what the genius, the stable genius, tells you not to listen to, the fake news, and read the New York Times, the paper of record. If any of those organizations make a mistake, they will tell you that they made the mistake. Trump will not. See the difference? It's a huge difference. Clear that he's not a genius, because if he was, he would be thinking about what he was saying. He is not thinking about what he's saying. He's just saying whatever comes into his mind or whatever somebody's planted into his mind. He doesn't think about it, and then the following day he turns around and recants. So he doesn't have the ability, he doesn't have the brain power to be able to think about it real quick, like, what are my options here? What should I say? This is exactly why they didn't want him talking to lawyers. If he would have talked to lawyers, if the Mueller people would have like questioned him, which they didn't, he just took, you know, a take-home test, which was a joke. His lawyers filled it out. He would be impeached already. He's still getting impeached. It's just taken some time because there's been all this like nonsense. Like when the Mueller report came out, he got that guy Barr. That's why he was picked to go out there and lie for him. It's like our attorney general is actually now the lawyer for Donald Trump. So he came out, said all this stuff, made it look like the Mueller report was one way. It's not that way, okay? It's not how they said it was. All you have to do is read it, okay? Just read it. You got about 400 pages, and there's plenty of like synopsis out. You could just go to fake news, and they're going to give you a brief synopsis of what. Get the Cliff Notes. But you're going to have to go to fake news to get them. You're going to have to just suck it up and say to yourself, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe this guy is criminal. You know, maybe he isn't doing what's best for our country, and maybe he's doing what's best for him, and that's it. That's what it's all about. It's not a big deal. Everybody makes mistakes. I think, this is what I think a lot of people, the 30% of the population that backs him, this is my own personal opinion, is that they watched the show and they fell in love with Donald Trump watching his show, and now it's like too much like this psychological pain to admit that like I was totally wrong about this guy. They loved the show so much, they waited every week to see Donald. And they believed him, they believed this nonsense of him being a great businessman. Now we're finding out, no, he's a horrible businessman and he lied about it. That's why we didn't see his taxes. And that's why we're gonna get to see his taxes. If the dog is not collar conditioned, do not buy a bark collar. The dog will not know how to turn it off, okay? You're wasting your money.